Hello, hello, hello.
Moo.
Courtney just popped over and she was like, yeah, I got a text in my intern thread that said, Abby just made us moo. She was like, I thought, can't wait to hear that story.
How did we get there? It's a weird cult behavior.
It is a weird cult behavior. But it doesn't kill you, trauma bonds you. That's what I
That's what you say.
That is what I say.
Trying to get some.
I'm trying to get the chat on, and when it's this big, it won't do it. You got to do it like this. You got to do it like that.
Like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Welcome back. Round 3.
Guess who's back?
Jabby's back.
Okay. I want to just start. I guess let's pull up the emotion sheet real quick.
Oh.
Okay. Let's talk about the feeling of joy or happiness. We're going to do that one. So go ahead and pull it down now, Kat. Let's pick the feeling of joy. So, Beth Morse, how would you describe joy?
Well, I'll start with what I can think of because I have freeze brain.
Great.
Freeze brain.
What you just did is such good communication. Like being able to narrate, oh, I'm in freeze right now, so I'm having a hard time with that. Just being able to communicate that instantly gives us all empathy for you and understanding and use space. And actually that's like very counter freeze brain to be able to say you're in freeze brain. So great job.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm super familiar with it. So especially in all of these calls.
Yep.
So joy, I mean, the best way I can describe it with what I've got right now is just a feeling of lightness in my body. Like I can sit up straighter and it just feels not tense or, I don't know. I guess that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. Can you think of a memory where you felt joy or happy?
Sure. You want me to tell you about it?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
you have one off the bat. Good for you.
Yeah.
I was going to give you time.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
I don't even know if I believe you that you have freeze brain. You're with it.
Yeah. If you could feel my heart pounding right now and my brain is like,
it's fair. It's very fair.
So my grandkids bring me so much joy. So, I mean, I can just think of them. And as soon as I think of them, I can feel, the smile and just this lightness inside my chest, almost like I can almost float away.
Does it feel like your chest is open? Like, do you feel opened up?
Yeah.
Towards them?
It kind of makes me sit up straighter and just feel, that's a good way of describing it. I like that.
What do you feel emotionally when you think about your grandkids?
Yeah. So, I mean, I just feel so much love for them. So I'm not sure.
Well, it's just use as many adjectives as you got.
Yeah. So I feel a lot of gratitude for them. And the joy that they bring to my heart, I just thinking about them.
What brings you joy? Like, what is it about them that brings you joy?
I mean, I almost want to say just that they exist, I can't think of any other way of explaining it.
I'm just going to ask you some questions. Do you like the connection you have with them?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I like that they make me feel younger. I don't know if that's the way to say it, but because they exist, it's like, I don't know, I can go into play easier. I can, that taps me into that little girl that that needs play.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like they love you unconditionally? Like, are they excited to come see you?
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Do you feel
Yeah.
do you feel their joy about you?
Mhm. Yeah.
Does it feel really good to have people that light up when they see you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they like to hug you?
Yep. Especially my youngest grandson. He's 6. So, especially when they're coming or going, it's like he'll run up for hugs, one after the other, It's so funny.
That's so sweet. Do they crack you up?
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
are they entertaining?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to think about a time recently that you've been around them.
Mhm.
And just describe something about being around them that you enjoyed, like either what happened or what you felt, anything about, like, you could just pick a time, like, oh, I was watching them, they were playing tag, just any kind of description of a time that you've been around them.
Yeah. Yeah, so recently we got together, I don't know, a couple weekends ago. And my grandkids range in age from 6 to 16, so there's a little difference there. But we were playing a card game at the table, the whole family. And we were just having fun and just teasing each other and laughing, and yeah.
And who is your daughter their mom or your son their dad?
My son.
Okay. Was your son there while you're playing cards?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what
Yep.
did it feel like to have your son? Like, do you feel proud of your son and his kids? Do you feel love for your son and his kids? Like, what do you feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel very proud of my son. Yeah, he's an amazing person. All my family is. I just love them all so much. Yeah. Yeah. The freeze brain is that I can't think of words. So
That's okay. You're doing so
yeah.
good. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me this. What do you see in your grandkids and your son that they got from you? Like, what do you feel proud of that they got from you?
Ooh, that's a hard one. um, I, why is it so hard for me to think of this? Like, I can say all kinds of wonderful things about them, but it's very hard for me to say that they might have gotten something from me. Because I'm still in that struggling phase of, having kindness toward myself. I would probably say,
Why don't you
kindness.
hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Why don't you close your eyes and put your hand on your heart? Would it be okay if I talk to you a little bit and then have you share? Yeah. You are doing so good, Beth. You are just absolutely delightful. I am loving listening to you so far. I could literally feel your love and joy towards your grandkids. And I think that it's so healing to see somebody who loves their family. There's so much of that missing on the planet. And I give you permission to let go of whatever you think you need to be right now, and whatever you think I'm trying to get from you right now, and whatever you think everyone else wants you to be or say. And I just give you permission to know that you're already it. Just you in freeze brain is so endearing. Just you in freeze brain is so delightful. You in freeze brain is precious. So you don't have to perform it all. So I just want you to think about kindness. And I want you to think about a way that you see your son be kind. Like, what is something that you've noticed where he's kind? And then just share when it comes to your mind.
I think it's the way that he accepts me right where I am.
That's really beautiful. So can you think of ways that you showed him that? Were there ways that you accepted him? Doesn't mean you did it in every area. No human's perfect. But were there some ways that you showed him that he was loved right where he was?
Yeah.
Tell me about a way that you did that well.
Yeah. So he in 2020 he got separated from his wife. And that was a hard season.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that for him. Yeah.
So you were really kind to him when he was in need, when he probably felt broken. You were able to be a support to him. What a gift. What a huge gift for him to have a mom who was on his team while he was feeling alone. What a huge gift to have a mom that was supportive, who cared about him, who wanted to know how he was doing through the process. What a beautiful gift you got to give him. That's so beautiful. What are you feeling?
I think just that internal struggle of believing those things about myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, did you care about him while he was going through that? Did you check in on him? Did you abandon him? Did you blame him for everything? Were you safe? So I want you to go ahead and I'm just going to have you repeat after me if you feel good with it. So I'm going to say, heart.
Heart.
This is the truth.
This is the truth.
I gave him a lot of love.
Gave him a lot of love.
I supported my son.
I supported my son.
I cared for him.
I cared for him.
I believed in him.
I believed in him.
I checked in on him.
I checked in on him.
I accepted him.
I accepted him.
I mommed him
I mommed him
when he really needed that.
when he really needed that.
And I'm proud of myself.
And I'm proud of myself.
Because I loved as well as I could.
Because I loved as well as I could.
I gave my best.
I gave my best.
I gave my heart.
I gave my heart.
And I'm proud of that.
And I'm proud of that.
That's worthy of being celebrated.
That's worthy of being celebrated.
There's a lot of people out there.
There's a lot of people out there.
Like Abby.
Like Abby.
Who don't have a mom.
Who don't have a mom.
That can be supportive and caring when they go through hard shit.
That can be supportive and caring when they go through hard shit.
So even though it feels normal to me.
So even though it feels normal to me.
What I gave my son is extraordinary.
What I gave my son is extraordinary.
And a huge gift.
And a huge gift.
And a gift that deserves to be celebrated.
And a gift that deserves to be celebrated.
I'm worthy of being celebrated.
I'm worthy of being celebrated.
Not because I do everything right.
Not because I do everything right.
But because I have a huge heart.
But because I have a huge heart.
And I love with it.
And I love with it.
What are you thinking or feeling?
Great question.
You're like, I'm trying so hard to be present, Abby. I lasted a long time. Can you let me go now?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking that it was hard to say that I was proud of myself.
Yeah.
But it felt good to do.
Yeah. Why do you think it feels hard?
Because it's so easy for me to focus on all the things I've done wrong.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a really harsh inner critic.
Yes.
Who's trying to steal all of the love from you. It makes me think you grew up in a situation that felt unsafe.
Yes.
Was there some stuff that felt unsafe as a kid?
Yeah, a lot of things.
Did you learn to deal with the pain by hating yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I so know what that's like. That's how I handled my childhood. There was a lot that I was out of control of and a lot of crazy things. And the only thing I knew to do to feel control was to hate myself. And it's really heavy and it's really hard to break. But it makes a lot of sense. And I'm so proud of you for going on a journey towards love. I'm so proud of you for recognizing your inner critic. I'm so proud of you for choosing to say you're proud of yourself, even though you feel that resistance. You are worthy of being celebrated. I'm wondering if when you were a kid, the spotlight being on you and getting attention, if that didn't feel safe, like if you tried to hide to avoid getting seen.
Yeah. I mean, even when I was just a toddler, I would hide behind things to stay hidden. Yeah.
Oh. So praise would feel really unsafe, like it's opening you up where you could also get really hurt. You're being so brave, allowing yourself to be here and have the spotlight on you when that is everything opposite of what you did as a kid and everything opposite of what felt safe. You're being so brave. Thank you. Thank you for letting us sit here with you. I'm so sorry that attention was unsafe. And I want you to feel safe, but you're worthy of love and celebration. There's so much more right with you than there is wrong with you. I just see this precious little girl thinking she was a bad little girl. But like I can see her and I'm like, no, she's so precious. She's such a good little girl. There's so much goodness inside of her. She's a gift to the planet. She brings joy. She brings life. She brings goodness into situations. She's not the cause of the pain. Sometimes she might cause pain, but most of the time, she's not the cause of the pain. I just want you to know that your little girl is so precious. And she really wants you to see that she's good. And she really wants you to believe in her. And she really wants you to say she's worth celebrating. She really wants you to look for what she's doing right. Yeah, she'd like that. She'd really like for you to tell her that she did something right. Yeah, she'd really like that. What are you thinking or feeling?
So you're right. She really would like that.
Yeah. So why don't you say this? Heart,
Heart,
I have a lifetime of habits
I have a lifetime of habits
of looking for everything you did wrong
of looking for everything you did wrong
because I was trying to protect you.
because I was trying to protect you.
I thought if you did everything right,
I thought if you did everything right,
that maybe things would be okay.
that maybe things would be okay.
Perfectionism,
Perfectionism,
you've lied to me.
you've lied to me.
And you've told me
And you've told me
that if I finally get it all right,
that if I finally get it all right,
I'll be safe.
I'll be safe.
But that's not true.
That's not true.
That's a fucking lie.
That is a fucking lie.
I'll never get it all right.
I will never get it all right.
Safety is being able to be imperfect
Safety is being able to be imperfect
and know that I'm loved.
and know that I'm loved.
Safety is being able to let love in.
Safety is being able to let love in.
Safety is seeing everything I do right.
Safety is seeing everything I do right.
It's going to take me a while to reprogram heart.
It's going to take me a while to reprogram heart.
But I want to learn to love you and celebrate you.
But I want to learn to love you and celebrate you.
Because you're worthy of that.
Because you're worthy of that.
Because you're a good little girl.
Because you're a good little girl.
Who has so much to offer.
Who has so much to offer.
And you're worthy of believing that.
And you're worthy of believing that.
So heart.
So heart.
When I start to beat you up.
When I start to beat you up.
You have permission to yell at me.
You have permission to yell at me.
And say, no, 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 no.
And say, no, 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 no.
Because I want to learn.
Because I want to learn.
To see you.
To see you.
The way I see my grandkids.
The way I see my grandkids.
I want to see you.
I want to see you.
With the same love.
With the same love.
And the same joy.
The same joy.
As I feel towards my grandkids.
As I feel towards my grandkids.
My grandkids are imperfect.
My grandkids are imperfect.
But it doesn't make them less lovable.
But it doesn't make them less lovable.
I want you to imagine if somebody came and started telling your grandkids everything they were doing wrong. What would you feel? towards them.
We want to beat them up.
Yeah. And that is exactly what the accuser has been doing to you, just bullying you. And I want to beat him up on your behalf because I can see the gold in you. I can see the goodness in you. So just say, heart.
Heart.
I invite unconditional love in.
I invite unconditional love in.
All right. Would you be okay if we pray for a minute?
Yeah.
Say, God. I'm going to have you repeat after me still.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. God.
I need you to help me with love.
I need you to help me with love.
Help me to see myself the way you see me.
Help me to see myself the way you see me.
Help me to see that you see me differently than I think.
Oh, wait, say that again.
Yeah, totally. Help me to, that was too long. Help me to see that you
Help me to see that you
see me with such love.
see me with such love.
I invite your love
I invite your love
to rip my inner critic out
to rip my inner critic out
so that I can hear the voice of kindness
so I can hear the voice of kindness
more than the voice of accusation.
more than the voice of accusation.
Beth, is there anything that you need to hear or want to hear?
Nothing else I can think of.
Wonderful. Well, go ahead and open your eyes. Do you guys just all want to, why don't we just show Beth how you feel, however way you want to do it. I just felt so much love for you. Like you are so tender and delightful and precious. So I am so thankful that you shared. Thank you so much for that. That was wonderful. I'm sure you will want to go through and reread the chat and do that. And you hung in so well. You didn't run out of that. I thought it was beautiful and so powerful. And now we're going to do the fun part, which is logically diagnose everything that just happened. So let's talk about, this is why resource is so valuable. Like we didn't have to even go into her pain. Trying to get people into their love for themselves and their joy, just that can bring up the stuff.
Yeah.
And so this is where I'm like, we literally, we just went with resource, and that's a great way to crack people up. But the more we can get people to stop and actually celebrate themselves, the more we can get them to feel good feelings, even just her feeling her love towards her grandkids. I could just sit there and get her to feel it and describe it and get her body. Like I could see sometimes when she was describing her grandkids, I could see her body feel a relaxed sense when she was describing the joy she felt around her grandkids. I could see that she could tangibly feel the feelings just thinking about them. And a lot of times what I'm doing in sessions is trying to get people to feel good feelings, be able to define them, talk about them. What is it like in their body? What are their thoughts? What do they love about it? And we just sit in that for a while because it helps your nervous system to have these moments of love and safety, helps you then be able to go into pain a little bit. So why don't you bring up the sheet of validation, and I'm going to have you guys point out ways that you saw me validate her based on these different ways. So I'm just going to go over a few that we haven't talked about. Validate based on trigger context. So based off of how much anxiety you have around conflict, I can imagine this was really hard for you. Based around how scary conflict was in your childhood, it makes sense this would feel high stakes. I'll just give you this example so that it connects it to in your brain. So when I was like, if being in the attention was really scary for you as a kid, wow, you're being so brave by allowing us to sit here with you and have the attention. What am I doing? I'm validating based on knowing, this is, you could call this like knowing the cost for someone. Like I thought this earlier about Dan Stauffer. I was like, based on how much you had to shut emotion down, the idea that you took a course about emotions is remarkable. How brave is that for you to do that? Like it's thinking through something, their context, their story, and then how something that could look like a normal thing, like some people, it could be normal to take a course like this. Other people, it could be terrifying to take a course like this. So we're wanting to validate the cost based on the context that we have of their story. Validate uncommon humanity, validate the client's intentions, celebrate any steps forward. I'm so proud you recognize your pain coming up in real time. That's huge. And then validate based off of underlying meaning. So let's go ahead and what did you guys notice about ways that that I validated her through that process? Francois.
I first kind of like noticed how you got her to open up and share more about like what brings her joy. Like I wrote all of the questions down because like I think I recognize that in myself, that like it can be tough to be like, well, I don't know what it is. And so like the questions that you asked just felt like really able to help her think through and come up with those things. And even as you asked them, I was like, oh, I felt like it was just, I fell into shame because I was like, oh, it's because like they love her and like now she's receiving this. And it was like, but you didn't have that shame. And so like I just recognized and like saw that you held that safe space for her. So I think all of that was really great.
That's great. Very good. Simon, why don't you bring up?
Yeah, from the very beginning, you recognized or celebrated that she was recognizing she was in freeze from the very start. So it created that atmosphere already of celebration. Yeah.
Yeah. What are
compassion.
that's great. What are other things that you saw be celebrated as we went through it?
You continue to encourage her that she was sticking with it and that this was hard and that she was being brave, even being proud of herself.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard. And that you were celebrating her in that as well.
Right. Very good. Kat, will you pull it back up again? We're just going to go through each of them and I'm going to ask you guys where you saw it. So, reflective listening. Well, let's see. I did validate for us. He just said that. Validate the emotional experience. So what is a way that I validated her emotional experience? Ari, you said this one, so why don't you dive into it?
I can't remember the specific moment, but
okay. That's okay.
I like you had noticed that she kind of had like fear of speaking in front of everyone. I think you said something of like, wow, that's really brave that like you're in freeze, but you're still showing up this way and staying in it.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that that was a way you did that.
Yeah. Great. Randy. Go ahead and share.
Yeah, just how you were talking about as kids, if we feel unsafe with that attention, how it feels more safe to just turn against ourselves and self-hatred, and that becomes our protective mechanism. So that way, and I'm just going to hate myself on top of that as an extra layer of protection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. Jenna, why don't you share?
Yeah, I remember at one point you, I think, made the connection that
I don't remember what she was saying, but you said, I would imagine that you didn't feel safe growing up, and you could tell that she connected to that. And then she was able to tell you that she remembered hiding as a toddler. And then you were able to validate why, even in the beginning of her sharing, that she didn't want to be seen if she grew up in a house that felt so unsafe.
Yeah. So why do you go ahead and take this down for a second, Kat? I'll have you pull it out in a minute. But why do you guys think I got to that? How do you think I jumped from what we were talking about to her wanting to hide as a kid? Besides that I'm an emotional ninja, there's actually logic. Lynette.
I think you saw and you said something about like, oh, you must have a really harsh inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, you were like, you must have had an unsafe childhood. Is that true? And then made that connection.
Yeah, very, very good. This is great. So when I hear that there's a harsh inner critic, I immediately, like, my brain goes to PTSD. I mean, not PTSD, but like complex PTSD, the book. And I think through like, oh, okay, harsh inner critics typically come from some kind of thing that feels unsafe. So I didn't even have to know exactly what it was that felt unsafe. I just started with, did it feel unsafe? And then what are the other connecting dots that you guys thought I had in how I led? Tiffany Connors, why don't you share?
Hey, you said, I think it was when she was saying something like, it's hard for me to say that I'm proud of myself. And you kind of made the connection of like, oh, it must not have been safe for you to feel like noticed.
Mm-hmm. So when I hear that she's unsafe and then that it's really hard to celebrate herself, I'm thinking I would bet often when people don't want to celebrate themselves, they don't want attention. It's like they want to deflect. And why would people hide from attention if attention wasn't safe? So these are the logic cues I'm doing. I'm not just randomly picking things that I'm saying or doing. I'm putting together, I'm building dots for it, like in my brain. And so that great call out, Tiffany. That was really good. You could also add the dot of, okay, she has freeze and she says she has a really big freeze. And I also was able to, so something that I can do is sometimes I'll notice a behavior and I'll think through, who does this remind me of? So she actually reminded me of this woman that I used to know that like loved people so well, but had such a harsh inner critic. So she was always beating herself up, but she came from this really traumatic childhood. And so she had a hard time seeing that she had worth and that she had value. And it was really hard for her to believe that. And so I don't assume they have the same story at all, but it like helps me think like, oh, she looks like one of those women that is really good at loving, but probably doesn't see how good she is at loving. And so sometimes it helps create framework for other questions to ask or other things to do that way. Alita, are you commenting on this?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say I loved the way that you used your own experience. Like you said, I wish I had a mom now, and just some of her feelings, that was so validating for you to say that to her. I think that really brought her into a place where she didn't feel shame. I thought that was really comforting.
Yeah. So one of the things I was trying to do is I was aware that she's giving something that's really precious away and she doesn't see that it's precious. So I'm trying to like give her emotional context of like, hey, you think it's just normal to be a loving, supportive mom. Like that feels really normal to you. But I work with a million people who would dream of having a loving, supporting mom in most of their hard seasons. And so I'm like, but most people don't think they're rare because they're just used to being them, you know? They don't think anything they have is special because it's like, yeah, that's just who I am. And so you often have to paint a contrast picture of like showing that people who don't have this could find this really valuable. So that's very great. Maya, why don't you share?
Yeah, you brought in her grandkids and you're like, when they make a mistake, do you feel like they're unlovable or imperfect? And you kind of brought that back to herself, which was really beautiful.
Yes, that's a great example of using common humanity to do that. Very, very good. Kat, what did you say over here? Go ahead. And
I said that I think the theme of what you're doing is you were finding places of resistance and then just getting curious about it. And then when you would find, like, how does that logically make sense? How does it logically make sense she's in freeze? How does it logically make sense that she doesn't want to celebrate herself? How does it logically make sense? I can't remember that she would be, I can't remember what the other one was. And then once you found the information, which she's a dream client because she was super connected and really good at narrating her experience.
Totally. Absolutely.
It didn't take you very long. So then once she said it, then you had like all of these amazing points to validate her, but it was just simply getting curious about the points of resisting love.
Yeah. That's why it's not, but you could also tell while she was resisting love, there was also a tenderness towards it. Like, I didn't feel a FU wall at me when I was trying to do love. I could feel resistance. That is different than an I hate you wall. So it felt easy to look at it a little bit and then dig in a little bit. And then,
she didn't feel like she was resisting it, but just those places in her process.
Oh, I didn't think you were saying it. What you said just sparked my mind to think of that. Yeah. Okay, Jenna, why don't you share your point?
I had to find what I said. Yeah, at some point when she was talking about the inner critic, you shared a piece of your story and made those connections for her. And I think that was the first time that I heard the out of control sense and using self-hatred as a protector of, I'm in an environment that feels unsafe and this is a way to have control. And so I think, how does that feel validating? Maybe self-hatred without, like, it brought the logical connection for why you would take on self-hatred. Yeah, I'm not sure which part of validation that is, but
I think like one reason I did it is it helped me to not have to pull her out of a heart moment to teach her a concept, but it helped me to teach a concept without there being shame or hierarchy. So I often use me as, that's a common humanity way to validate, which is saying like, yeah, it is really like, what I'm doing is I'm validating the emotional experience through saying my own emotional experience, but not by making it about me. Like it didn't, if you notice, it didn't feel like it shifted to me then being like, yeah, my childhood was crazy and I felt tons of self-hatred and it was the worst. Like, like I shared in a way that was aimed towards her about myself, but it was validating the emotional experience of like validation and attunement at its core is saying like, it's logical, or it makes sense, or I understand you, or I understand why you do this, or I understand. And so by me sharing that part of my story, I'm saying, yeah, it would make sense that you'd have an inner critic. I'm like helping her to, because again, a lot of us get mad that we have an inner critic. We get mad that whatever realization we have, we're mad at. And so it's bringing that compassion and helping her see the humanity. Oh, that's normal. It's normal that if you go through this, that might happen. That doesn't mean I'm bad. Great call out. Angie. I can't hear you. You're on mute, maybe. Or maybe you're not, and I can't hear you. I don't know.
She's not muted. Maybe her microphone isn't connected.
My guess is that
Okay, how about now?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
No?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, why the hell can't I hear them? Son of a bitch. Okay, look. You guys know that song, son of a bitch, give me a drink. Oh, well, what the hell? Okay, if you can hear me, I'm just gonna look at Justin Abby's face. There were parts of what happened that I missed because I'm in noise. But can I say something about can I ask you a question about when you brought up the grandchildren thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She was in freeze. Was that what it was? She was a little bit in freeze-ish. When you said the grandkid part, I was like, oh my gosh. It reminded me that when I'm taking a picture, when my daughters are taking a picture of me and they're like, Mom, you got to do a different face because I know you're not going to like this picture with the face you're making. And then they say, think of Evan. So my grandson. And as soon as I think of Evan, they're like, stay right there. And then they just start snapping away. So when you did that, was that just like a different form of like when you've had us do the, you're like, grab something and you feel, name 5 things because we're focusing on a different, we're changing the channel to change the focus. Is that overall what you were?
I mean, it is I wouldn't say entirely. Can you not hear?
I'm gonna have to go back and hear the recording because I can't hear them.
Yeah. Or maybe just, yeah, there you go. Okay. So one of the things that I would say about this is I was grounding her in a thing that she could connect to. Like when people are having a hard time connecting, like I could see it was never hard for her to connect once her grandkids were involved. So anytime I just needed her to connect again to good emotions, to something that she could feel, her grandkids were a great one. Great question, Angie. One day you'll hear the answer to it. Oh, it looks like you can hear now. Wonderful. Gigi.
Yeah, it might be a little of what Angie was saying, but I was really loving how you helped her to get into her little girl and connect with her little girl, and attune to her little girl by saying, imagine someone coming and telling your grandkids everything that they do wrong. And you asked her, how does that make you feel? I'd want to beat them up. And I was like, oh, she's there. She is now connecting and has resource and can parent that little girl or see that little girl.
Yeah. So what that is, a great call out. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build leverage. So in the last session, when I was talking to Francois and Ryan about like their voices that were against love, I went into like, write down your beliefs and do this. What I'm trying to do is build leverage. So there's often emotions feel so true to us that we need a logical thing that can help pierce through the wall that we have. So when you can connect somebody to their grandkid or to a little kid, or often that can break through with compassion, not everybody, but it was a way that could do that. So I love that. Great call out. Okay. What did you guys see? Kat, can you bring the validation things back again? Let's talk through all the ways that you saw me validate or celebrate any steps forward. Or celebrate, I guess we could just say validate or celebrate them as a person also. Go ahead and bring it back down, Kat. What are the ways that you saw like validate or her inherent worth? Either one of those. Emily.
I saw that you were really doing that when you were, it was kind of, I thought it was maybe validating intentions, but it was also celebrating her when you were talking her through her hard season with her son, how you were asking her, like, you probably did this and you probably did this and you probably did this, to really validate that her intentions toward him were so good and that he would have received her as a good mom,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. I would call that validating intentions, but to me, I don't really care if we're hitting the right ones or not. I'm just wanting you guys to connect the dots. So that's perfect. It's validating that I see that your intentions were good. I see that you had good intentions, and then trying to get her to also agree with the good intentions. Great. Thank you so much. Mike or Randy, whoever's hand is up.
Yeah, that's mine. I think when you were comparing and contrasting, I think it was how she may have felt about her son, kind of what Emily was talking about, but I think I interpreted it differently, where she's like, or where you're basically like, you know, would you think this about your son? Like negative things. And she's like, no, of course not. No, of course not. But then like the idea was like, oh, but I might feel that way about myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, would you treat someone poorly like this? She's like, no, or would you treat someone well? It was that contrast of how she treats others to herself, which I think kind of implied inherent worth.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Great. Anthony.
Yeah, I liked it when you were leading her to a time of speaking through her own heart and saying like, hey, I just want to celebrate your heart. You're such a good little girl. And like that was like something I could tell was helping her attach to celebration. And then I wrote it down here, but you said heart, when I start to beat you up, you have permission to like yell at me and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, that's my own personal prayer that I went on when I was learning to reconcile with me, was like, I'm not going to catch this all the time, but I don't want to be abusive to you anymore. And I'm recognizing that I've been pretty abusive to you, but I don't want to be, but I also know it's a deeply ingrained habit. So please help. And I feel like it's realistic to talk to your heart with realistic expectations. I'm not going to tell my heart, like, now I'm going to love you so good. I'm like, now I'm still going to wrestle with my inner critic, but I care. So I think that great call out. Yes, Jenna, I want you to go ahead and just mention your last comment, because it is one of the things I want to hit.
You want me to mention it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. And I think because you were trying to get her to connect to joy within herself. And at first it was with her grandchildren. And then, but what I was remembering was when you asked her, you said, what is something that you love about your son? And she said that he loves and accepts me right where I'm at. And then you were able to ask her, can you think of how you taught him that, or a time that you did that for him?
Yes.
And you could tell the resistance when she was like, oh, I have to turn this, not have to, but
sure,
trying to turn that love and joy back towards herself.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. One of the assumptions that when I interacted with her, and this is the intangible thing, but you guys will learn it if I communicate it. I can feel someone's energy, right? We can all feel someone's energy when they're sharing. So I could feel that there's a really like tender woman who's like, there's kindness and love. You could see it through how she like lit up even about her grandkids. Like you could just tell like what a tender heart she has. And so I started from an assumption that she actually probably was a kind woman. And she actually some of that came from the actual experience I was having with her of like, oh, I can tell she's like one of those really sweet women who just cares for people. But I think I had asked her like what she loved about herself or celebrated, or what something she was proud of, or I asked some kind of question, and she was having a hard time. And Kenneth actually said this. He said one of his ways of connecting to a resource is thinking about what he's proud of passing down to his kids. And so a lot of times what I'm trying to do is find a creative solution to help somebody connect to love that is not just like connect to love. You don't feel love for yourself, just get over it. It's like, oh, well, what's a different way we could find love for you? What's a different way we could find connection? So that was really great. Rachel, do you have any comments before we continue on, or Justin?
I mean, I thought what you did was genius. I think that one thing that I do often is, like I'll titrate the feeling in someone's body that they have positively towards their own little kid, and then see if they could substitute, like if she had her grandkids, one thing I would do would be like, tell me how it feels in your body when you feel love towards your grandkids. Like, what does that feel like? how do you notice? How does your body know that you feel love towards them? And then you can like substitute her grandkid out with her inner child and go back and forth with that. Often that will really like, because it's different to have a conceptual thought of compassion versus like a felt embodied experience towards your little kid. Yeah. And you guys will notice that on my LFA calls, I ask people a lot, like, when you picture your little girl, what do you feel towards her? Because I'm trying to get, or feel towards him if it's a little boy, but trying to get people into an embodied felt sense of compassion towards themselves, not just a logical idea, but that's great too. Yeah.
I do have something I'm going to add. So when I've got to these crossroads with people, sometimes they still can't get to love for the child within. So I think that that's worth bringing up, because you'll encounter that, like,
absolutely,
there'll be this strong experience of resistance. For me, one of the things that I walk people into is asking them, what is the thing that I have unforgiveness towards myself for? So when we bring up, say, that little child, if Beth was having a hard time, like, or they couldn't connect at all, I'd be like, all right, well, what's one thing that we're angry at or mad at, or we feel like we have judgment towards little Beth for? Or because ultimately there's usually this unforgiveness there, and that's why that stays there, why we can't connect to love. And then I begin a process of asking the question, like, what do I need to do in order to forgive this little child? And a lot of times, like, they'll be like, all of a sudden answers will come up suddenly, like, this is what I need to say, this is what I need to do, or this is why I refuse to forgive. Like, why do I refuse to forgive this little child? And we get some very big aha answers that will help them get to a place of forgiveness. Then they can begin to get the love over to that space.
A lot of things that we are doing in every session is, like, if you notice, it's just helping people connect to love. That's like basically the heart of validation. The heart of celebration is helping people connect to love, helping people hear their love, hear their worth, hear they matter, hear they're good, hear that their experience matters, hear that they're safe. That's basically the thing. Okay, Kat, let's pull it back up. Okay. Let's scroll down to page 2 and see if there's any, let's see, right. Oh, sorry. Okay. So validate emotions more than situations, get lots of context. There's always something I don't know, generous assumptions for each person. And is my validation going to, okay, we did that. And we did the do not do list. Great. So let's go back up to the top. Did we do the do not do list? Yeah, we did. Okay. So let's do validate based on trigger context. I want you guys to think of one thing that somebody shared on this call, on any of the calls in this mini conference, that you can validate based on their trigger context. Or maybe let me point it. Let's pick one thing about Isaac to validate based on his trigger context. So he shared a trigger. And so if you think about the context of that, what is something you could celebrate or validate based on the story that he shared? Catherine.
I think the thing that comes up to my mind is where in his trigger, his parents were using hiding because of shame. Mm-hmm. And he was being so brave by sharing what he had felt so much shame about.
Yeah. So let's say that he was your client. How would you say that to him?
I think I would start with
like, just say it to me like you're saying it to him.
Okay. I'm so sorry that that
You don't have to do all the validation, just validate
okay.
on the context.
Okay. So I'm so brave. You're so brave for being willing to share what felt like something so shameful. And I imagine that that would take a lot of courage to be willing to share something that felt like such a heavy weight. And in that space, you really took a huge step. And that's like, I really celebrate that.
Right. Wonderful. Great job. Very good. Also very courageous, because I know that that's so much pressure to have to do something on the spot in front of the group. And you did wonderful. Great job. Thanks for speaking up. Okay. What else? There's several things that I could validate based on his context. So what else could you validate? Spencer. Great.
Yeah, I would just say, I think it's pretty amazing that his parents, they taught him to hide in shame, and he's doing a course that is the exact opposite of that. I mean, he could have, and it would have been cool if he even read a book about emotional health, but he's here doing a course, not only participating, but asking for accountability.
Yeah.
And he's not only time, but money, because he wants to run after this. And I think that's pretty impressive that he's able to counter that. So
yeah, I thought that was really beautiful, and I could actually feel your words. The only thing that sometimes I think is helpful to add, I mean, that would have been perfect. If you would have been in a session doing that, that'd be prima. But one thing that I was just thinking to teach on, not because you didn't do it right, is oftentimes I add contrast to help people see, so adding contrast to that would have been like, yeah, it'd be easy for you to avoid emotions and avoid all of this together. Like, it'd be easy for you to just dissociate and run away for the rest of your life. Just adding the contrast of what you could have done sometimes helps people see why it's a big deal that you didn't do that. But I thought I could actually feel your words and you connected to it. Very good.
Thanks.
Great job. Okay. Anyone else? Kat.
I mean, you just said this a little bit, but he totally could have put that on the chat and then disconnected, but he was so connected through that whole moment. And I was, as I was sitting here thinking, I was like, wow, that's so fucking brave of him. Like, so fucking brave to be taught so much shame and like to separate from yourself. The degree that he would have had to have separated from himself.
There you go. There you go.
Separated from his story.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to sit with 80 fucking people and let all of them see him cry. That's like very amazing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't cry panic either, which I would also maybe like, that would feel normal. Like, there's all of this self-separation. Now I'm in panic. It was cry connection. It was cry healing. And that was amazing.
Yeah. This is a great call out. And I love that you kind of found your way there, which is a lot of how I validate. I start somewhere, and as I'm engaging the empathy, it starts to lead me through. Empathy is how I validate, right? So I think through, what did it feel like to be him? And what is amazing about that? And so where you caught on, like, I could see it wasn't there when you started, and then you got the language as you went, which is what I want people to practice. Exactly what you said. You thought, oh, in his trigger, when in his context, dissociation is what he did. And what he's doing now is connecting. He's doing something the opposite of what was deeply ingrained in him. That is a big deal. So I'm often looking for, how is somebody doing something in the opposite spirit, or how is there a movement in the opposite forward that we can validate? So that was a great job, Kat. Ruth, hi. Oh, nope, she's gone.
Hi.
I'm right here. I just don't know. Okay, let me raise it again.
There you go.
There you are.
I really was drawn to the fact that even as a little boy, his purity and innocence, and coming to his parents and saying, this is what I'm struggling with. And I thought that was so beautiful because going back and saying, no, actually, you are pure. You are innocent. You were really just trying to understand what was happening in your heart. And I just thought that was so amazing how, Isaac, you were so precious at that age. And I just really loved that you were just at that time trying to do the right thing, really. And it's connection. You were trying to find comfort in something. And it wasn't your fault that it wasn't healthy in a way, but it's okay. It wasn't bad. You were still innocent. You were still good, and you were still pure. And that's kind of what I was connecting with. And I'm just really grateful that you were so brave to share that example with us that a lot of us can relate to. And probably one of the reasons why I can connect with that is because I have a boy in my home, my sweet son, who's been there. And yeah, I just thank you for opening that up for all of us today. It was a gift.
So here's what I would do. If you were practicing as a consultant, what I would do is I would take, first of all, you did a great job. She was validating what his intentions, right? She was seeing, I can't tell you how healing it is for somebody to see that you had good intentions in any circumstance, because most of the time people definitely misread your intentions. And I think this is one of the most common pain points from everyone's childhood, is that they wanted to do something with good intentions, but they didn't. So you were mentioning that you have a son. So what would you feel towards your son if he shared something this vulnerable with you?
Oh, and he has. And so we just chat about it like, oh, cool. How did that feel in your body? Like, I'll take it as far as he's able to go with it without feeling like mom is intruding or mom is being a mom. Thankfully, he's older now and he has context for that. Oh, did you go? Oh, no, you're back. So we can take it as far as he'll let me, but it's just curiosity talk. So
I'm just wanting to, you're doing great. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did mean to cut you off. But you're doing great. That's not why I cut you off, is because you weren't doing good. So what I want you to do is, we're practicing validation. So I love that you've done that with your son. That's beautiful. But I'm wanting to keep it focused on Isaac. And so what I'm thinking is, what do you feel towards your son that I wish he could have experienced?
Yeah. Well, Isaac, I wish you would have experienced safety in your home. I wish you would have experienced your parents just being curious for what it was that your heart needed, and that they would have been able to see that you were just a little boy trying to find comfort, that they would have been able to just embrace you and be like, oh, hey, buddy, what is it that you thought you were going to find here? How can I help you better?
Yeah.
Do you want to share with me what it is that your heart needs a little bit more?
Yeah.
What is it that you're getting from this that I can possibly help you get? And just know, Isaac, that you are not in the least bit bad for seeking to help your heart feel what it needs to feel. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And just for you to know that it's always safe to say what you need. And it's always safe for you to talk about these things. You can tell me anything and it will not be taken against you in any way. This is safe. You're safe here.
Yeah. So did you guys see, one of the things I was having her do is, you could feel her tapped into her mama heart as she was speaking. You could feel like, you could tell this is what she feels towards her son. And so like, when we're validating, I'm looking for some kind of thing so that I'm not just logically telling people things. I want to be dropped in to actually emotionally feeling that love or that compassion. And so I use whatever it is in my story that helps me connect. But what you could see Ruth do, which you did perfectly, is tap into that heart where like, then she actually was through that. She kind of reparented him, like, oh, contrasting. This is what it could have felt like. This is what it could have been with a mom who was safe and tender and soft. And sometimes people just hearing what they never heard or realizing that it could have been different is really soothing. It reparents them. And so because I could feel Ruth's heart towards her own son when she brought him up, I wanted her to tune into that towards Isaac. And I think you did a great job. Great job. Yeah. Emily said, would an apology on behalf of a mama's heart be validating? Totally. Because what is the heart of validation? It's I see you and your experience makes sense. So if I am apologizing on behalf of a mama heart, I often validate through apologizing through something. So great job. Is there anyone else who has any other things that they would have from the trigger context validated Isaac for? Okay. Let's go ahead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have
Jenna had thrown her hand
somebody threw their hand up.
Jenna Allen did.
Jenna, did you throw your hand up?
Yeah, it's a quick one.
Do it, girl.
Yeah, when in his message that he wrote out, the last thing that he said was he was remembering where he made the decision to not care about what anybody thought, but the very act of sharing and allowing you to validate him for as long as he did, he was allowing himself to be affectable.
Yes. Yes. So this is how it's done. We're looking at what costs somebody, what hurts somebody, and what is something they've done recently that is the opposite of that. That is a great example of he put walls up to not let people affect him. And then the very act of what he was doing was letting them down. And then what are we doing? We're celebrating any little step forward. So I don't think that means like, I'm not going to be like, now he totally has let down all of his walls forever with people. But I'm like, anytime you do something in the opposite, you're creating a new brain rut, you're creating a new pathway. So we want to celebrate any little thing that somebody does that is different from whatever the thing was that was not as healthy. So that's a great call out. This is one of my favorite ways to validate people is based on the context of their triggers. Like I had a conversation with Courtney the other day, and she used to be so scared of confrontation, and she did a confrontation recently. And I was like, look at you. You've just been having confrontation right and left. And like you used to hate confrontation. Like, this is amazing. Do you see how brave you've become? Do you see how much something that felt horrible has now become very, very like normal to you? Do you see how, I mean, you used to have so much anxiety. Look at how much work you have done to get through your anxiety, to learn how to have a voice. And then I could like just validate all the steps I've seen, especially with clients, because you get to start to watch them. You get to learn more and more about their context. I'm constantly validating based on context. That's one of my favorite ways to do it.
I was going to say, as a side note, like you validating based on context of where someone was at and where they are, oftentimes we're pretty blind.
Yes.
The development that we've been in, and we don't feel like we've grown at all inside of life.
Yes.
And it's such a deep encouragement, not just because we're saying nice things, but because the truth of where we're at inside of our journey is getting put on display for us to really sit and consider. And I know that for me, that inside of our marriage, when Abby would be like, you realize that you were here and now you're over here, and back in the past, because of these things that happened in your childhood, you would have never done that. It just like gave me such strength to keep moving forward inside of it. And it solidified that I wasn't failing.
Yeah. And I think on the emotional health journey, we're constantly aware of what we're not doing. And we're constantly aware of how far we have to go. and we're constantly aware of how messy we are. And so that is a way to see someone, right? Validation is I see you. So it's me being like, I know you enough. I heard you when you said that. I heard you enough to see how big of a deal this is, to see how powerful this is, to that price you paid, it deserves to be celebrated. These are, I mean, these things, if you don't learn any, like, this is why I'm telling you, you don't have to give any life advice. If you learn to help people connect to resource and help see them, it will change their lives. Okay. I want to have one more person like share something and then have people practice the different kinds of validation. Hold on one second. Okay, Lynette, why don't you share? Do you have like some kind of trigger you've had recently that you could share?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's most recent. I hope it's appropriate because I was pretty triggered dealing with talking about Beth because I have an adult son that recently got divorced and I did not do it well. I made it very messy. I villainized him and things were not pleasant. So it makes it harder to feel like, oh, you did such a good job as a mom. Is that a good one? Or
That's
do you want to go
one.
on to somebody else?
Great one. Yeah, no, that's great. Great job. Great job. Perfect that I called on you.
And very brave.
And very brave. Yes. Okay. I want you guys to notice how often we are validating. I want you guys to actually start to pick up because Justin his first gut response was validation. Like, this is so brave to share.
Especially you being willing to offer that and bring that to the table, considering we just have that experience with Beth where she did show up well and to be like, I'm going to tell on myself.
Yeah.
I shit the bed.
Sure did.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask you the question of all questions. Do you have compassion on yourself for why you villainized him?
No.
Okay. So do you want to tell me a little bit of, like, give me a very short recap of why he got divorced?
I think there was a lot. It felt like there was a lot more abuse on his side with drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing than was on her side. So it was easy to hear her story and victimize her, villainize him, because that is my past and my story of an abusive ex-husband. And so it's easy to run there.
So why don't you tell me just a little snippet of what your relationship with your ex-husband was like?
Oh, 23 years. Pretty intense controlling abuse. A lot of psychological abuse, verbal abuse, and then a lot of alcoholism in the end. That was really ugly.
Could you give us some examples of what the abuse looked like?
In general, I always think of it as like a spoked bicycle wheel where he was the center and all the spokes were all the different friends and family members. And there was a lot of taking one instance and pitting it against the other person without the knowledge of all the other people. And so everyone kind of outside of his existence felt like he was the center of attention and he was the one controlling. He was very charming and loving, but we all kind of hated each other, kind of thing.
What was something about your son's behavior that reminded you of your husband's behavior?
My son has become a very, he's been addicted to drugs and alcohol for a while, and mean and verbally abusive to me, to his siblings, and it doesn't surprise me, to his wife, but then I just villainized him.
No. Okay. So let's separate.
Okay.
Saying what happened is not villainizing.
Yeah.
Like if somebody is abusing somebody, it's not villainizing to say that that happened.
Yeah.
There's a difference between, like I can definitely say, and then I watched that guy shoot that girl. That's not me villainizing. That's literally me just saying that happened. So, okay. So when you say that you villainized your son, what did that look like?
I felt like I was holding nuance to love them both through the divorce, but that looked like really hearing her side of the story, having a lot of compassion for her side of the story, and in text messages, just loving her and encouraging her to get to a place of safety and to take the baby and get, safe and that sort of thing. Did not realize that those messages were going to be snipped out and utilized in a court hearing so that she could gain a restraining order against my son.
That sounds painful.
Yeah.
Okay. But how did you villainize your son?
Well, by siding with her and not really seeing his side of the story. Was it everything that she said? Did he do what she said? Did I ask him?
Yeah. Okay. And can you tell me some of the, can you give one example of something your son has done that maybe to you being mean or abusive that reminds you of something your husband would have done?
Yeah, for sure. My son was very opinionated, would be very loud in emotion and just get up in my face and be like, what you're doing is wrong. This decision isn't right. And so I could see that if he did that to me, to his siblings, that he possibly could have done that to his wife.
Yeah. And was your husband like that? He'd get up in your face and yell?
Yeah.
And what kinds of things would he yell?
A lot of blaming, a lot of shaming. How stupid are you that you burn the meal? Can you guys be quiet? I'm trying to work. Just.
So did he have a short emotional leash?
Yeah.
And does it feel like your son has a short emotional leash?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are doing such a good job of answering so many hard questions. And this is so perfect because it is going to enable us to do so much fun stuff because people naturally are going to want to villainize in how they validate you.
Yep.
And so everybody's going to get to practice not villainizing while validating you. Okay, so Kat, pull up our validation sheet. Okay, ways to validate. I'm going to just go over these and then you guys, I'm just going to give you guys a chance to pick one of them and validate in one way that you can without villainizing anyone. So reflective listening, validation of emotions, validating for F triggers, validating the emotional experience, validating based on inherent worth, validating based on trigger context, validating with common humanity, validating the client's intentions, validating or celebrating any steps forward, validating based off the underlying meaning of the story or belief system that showed up. So let's start with, because this is one of the easiest places for me to start. Let's start with validating or celebrating any steps forward. Let's start there. Go ahead, Kat, you can take it down. What is a way you could validate or celebrate any step forward?
Hold on a second.
Anyone have any ideas while we did the sidebar? Amy, everybody's terrified. Let's start this. One, anybody who tries this is brave. So we're just going to celebrate that you're brave, whoever tries to validate. And it is going to be a teaching point. And there's going to be times that we are like, yes, nailed it. And there's going to be times like, oh, I might try it this way. And our goal is not that you know how to do this without any practice. Our goal, I think I learn as much from when people do something that isn't maybe how I would do it as I do from when people would do. So there's zero high stakes. I fully believe in a learning environment, which means I never peg someone. If you make an answer that doesn't make sense in this session, I never think you'll never make sense ever again. I literally just think, yeah, we're all learning. We're all going to have days where things are good and days when things aren't. Same with me. So I'm just wanting to take the pressure off.
Yeah. And those who aren't willing to try are just cowards.
That's great. Okay, Amy, go ahead, girl.
Lynette. Oh, I just lost her face and I want to look
Oh,
at
yeah.
her.
Can you put your, Lynette, will you put your hand up, the digital hand up? That way you'll be on.
Good. And then I can pin you. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hey, Lynette, I just want you to know, first of all, I see that it is incredibly brave of you to own this after we just finished validating Beth in this process. And I think that that is huge. And I also want you to know that I think it's a huge step that you want to stop villainizing your son in this process. And the fact that I can see your heart of saying, oh, I actually want to turn this around in my own heart and for myself, that is an enormous step forward. And I just want you to know, I think that's incredibly courageous and brave. And I can see that you've done so much work just in the fact that you're owning this and saying that right now.
Very good.
Really proud of you.
That was great. Very good. I agree with everything. Wonderful. Ryan.
Wasn't expected to be called on that quick. I'm not a coward, all right? I don't know what category this fits into, but all I know
That's
is
fine.
What a horrible freaking position to be put in so many different ways. Not only in the court system, not only with your sister or daughter-in-law or your son, but like even the inner turmoil for yourself, because you know where it's coming from in regards to your ex-husband. And yet it's like the fights inside or the confusion inside. I feel you. I know where you're coming from. I'm dealing with something similar with my own brother and his wife. And as you were talking, I'm like, fuck me. I have made a villain out of my brother, and my sister-in-law is the victim. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel so, I got so much going on inside of me, resonating with you and the turmoil and everything that you know, that whole world that you're experiencing, even to the legal side. I don't know, damaged relationships all over the place, trying to do it well, but fucking it up the whole way through. Yeah, no, I feel for you, but you are an incredible woman who wants to do the best that she knows how to do. It just looks really messy. So in my opinion, well done, especially bringing it up in this situation and this circumstance with all these people. Yeah, you're a very powerful woman and you're trying your damnedest to make it work.
Yeah, that's great. You could tangibly, thanks so much for sharing, Ryan. You could tangibly feel empathy, right?
Yeah.
When he started describing. So what he was describing is he was imagining her emotional experience. What is it like to be caught between two people that you love? What is it like when it's high stakes and court is used and you don't know what is going on around you? Like part of validation is literally just breaking down the situation and thinking through the feeling of like there's not a win in a situation like this. There's not a clear cut. This is the right way to do it. And this is the wrong way to do it. There's mess. In mess, there's mess. So I thought, great job, Ryan. That ability to drop in to actually feel something and then describe to her. Because what did you feel when he shared?
I felt true empathy. Like he really was feeling my pain. He was right there with me.
Yeah. And so what made you tear up about that?
It feels so nice to have somebody acknowledge that pain.
Yeah.
I thought it was even interesting and powerful when he's like, yep, he's acknowledging I vilified my own brothers. I'm hearing this conversation. So even the sense of, oh, I'm not alone.
Common humanity.
It's actually happening right here with someone else who's going through it.
Yeah. And having somebody, so he's not looking at you, judging you for your behavior. And that's what validation is. I'm coming with you, not I'm looking at you from above. And so he was like, I'm in this with you. And one thing I thought, just Ryan, that will help take your validation to the next level is because what you said is, I realized this, I realized I've been villainizing this person. And the next step you could say is, by you sharing, it helped me connect to myself, which I think is the gist of what you were saying. It's just adding those words. So I think that beautiful job, Ryan and Lynette. Okay, let's go to Katie.
Hi.
And I'm just going to, before you go, at this point, we can validate any way you want on any of the lists for anybody. I just wanted to start with something that would get the juices flowing. Go ahead, Katie.
Awesome. Thank you. Lynette, I'm a little bit scared of making a shitty pancake with you because of how much I love you, but I'm also here because of how much I love you. Friend, I want to validate your intent. I watched you wrestle in this situation a lot this past year, and I watched you be aware. And like, even though you failed sometimes, like, you are worthy of love. And I watched you face the pain that it brought up with your ex-husband. And I watched you press in. And I see your intention. And I see the fear that came up inside of you when your son started to have similar behaviors to your husband. And I see how much that triggered so much pain, and you wanted to take care of your daughter-in-law. And I saw how you were confused and you hurt for both of them and you didn't know what to do. And so I have so much compassion that you got pulled into the swirl a little bit. You're allowed to do that. You're to make mistakes and clean them up. And you're so loved. And I've seen how incredibly brave you've been. Thank you.
Okay, so how did Katie just validate? What is the ways that she validated? She validated intentions, trigger context. Yep, very good. Very, very good. Great job. Wonderful. Okay, Eric.
Lynette, I just want to thank you for just sharing just this really hard experience. And I just want to say that you're not bad. Like, I feel like from what I was hearing, like, oh, I villainized my son just then, didn't I? I just want to tell you that you're not bad. That in this process, everything's trying to point to you saying like, oh, I didn't do this right. I didn't do this right. But you were just trying to love the best that you know how to do. Like, you were trying to love each person, your daughter-in-law and your son, the best way you knew how. And I just want to just remind you that, like, that the idea of course, you didn't know how to walk your son through a divorce. Like, you've never had to do that before. You never had to walk somebody else through this painful process. And you wanted to do it right. You wanted to do it just right to save him from any additional pain. And I just think you did your best. Like, your mama's heart was just trying its best. And I just feel so much grace and love pouring out towards you. And just the fact that you're here in LCMC is just like, wow, like you're here to just let love into all the places that you might have felt like, this is where I want to grow and love, and learning to love myself better in the process. So I'm just really proud of you for just showing up so bravely.
That's great. Very good, Eric. One of the things I loved you saying, like, of course you didn't know how to do this. That's a great way to validate people, because you've never walked your son through this messy divorce before. You've never been in a situation where your text got used against you. You've never, like, all of this is new. Of course you didn't know what to do. I thought that was really great. And I had actually already thought this along the same lines as what you're saying, is the way she described, and I think this is kind of what you're feeling. I'm just going to add words to it, because this is how I would have added words to it. Is it sounds like you think you're bad in the bad bucket for villainizing him. And I see that you're neither good nor bad for how that happened. There was a lot of things you did that were really beautiful and beneficial, and there were some mistakes you made, but it wasn't all good or all bad. And I think that's what you were, what you were headed towards. So I'm just adding words to it. But that is a concept I had already thought of. So I think it's great that you thought of it, because I think she was villainizing herself for villainizing her son.
Right.
And so
that's what I kind of wanted to address.
Yeah. And so I often in that moment will tell them, like, yeah, there were things you did that were messy, and there were things that you did that were really beautiful, because that's what humanity is. And so it's bringing that, like, and you did say, like, you're not bad for it. So I heard it. I'm just adding that I would literally take a second to be like, I don't want you to define yourself in that season as bad, because I don't think it was all bad. So just adding the directness, but you did great. And the concepts that you brought up were great. I feel really proud of you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. I didn't hear from anyone this. Are we going to ask another person?
Yeah. He's going to keep it.
Then I'll hold it off on.
Okay. Great. Is it Margot
or Jacqueline? Which one of y'all?
It's impossible to know.
Jackie.
We're just gonna go with this Jackie thing. Is it happening?
Oh, sorry, Jacqueline.
On my end, it is.
It's
I can get away with it.
Yeah, Justin said it first, and I told him over my dead cold body. And then I'm like softening to it. How did that happen?
It's a cute name.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Are you going?
It's me. Lynette. Aw, as soon as you started sharing, I felt so drawn in. And just in this year, just getting to know you more, like you're such an eager person to want to learn and to get feedback. And just see that in your heart, how open you are. My heart just tore up listening to what you were sharing. I just felt like your intentions to protect, how hard that would be to feel like they got violated in that way or just taken in a different direction. Even like showing up for your daughter-in-law, being a way for you to show up for yourself in the past, where maybe you didn't have a voice. Wanting to protect her from what you experienced. Wanting to offer to her something that maybe you didn't have access to before. Even being a little redemptive in ways. I'm sorry, it felt like that got twisted a little bit. And as someone who has family going through the court system right now, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's such a divisive, splitting experience. There's so much shame attached to it, just like the concept of your family going through court feels so shameful. It can just feel so high stakes. Like, what did I do? What did I say? What's going to get used against me?
when my intentions was to love and to show up and to keep relationships. And here it is getting turned around. Didn't intend to do something bad or villainize. I was just trying to show up. I'm so sorry, love. Love you.
Yeah, what I want to make a few thoughts there. Honestly, what Jacqueline did, even talking about wanting to make sure that she protected her daughter-in-law, and also wanted to almost go back and redeem and protect herself inside of it. Those are the two things that I was actually thinking of right before you went up there, and that I was like, hey, I want to say something. Spot on. And the other thing is that you were so present with yourself. You got so into your empathetic heart space. I could feel that there, Jacqueline. And I really love that. I could feel that genuine, you were just engaging Lynette in that.
Yeah. Well, I felt so proud of you, Jacqueline, because you dropped in. So I could feel you dropped in and present while you were sharing with her. These are the intangible things. You can say everything right, but if you're not present, the whole point is attunement. The whole point is connection. The whole point is being with. And so you did a great job of dropping in. And then exactly, and this would be something I would probably, and I know you weren't going to spend an hour doing it, so I'm not saying you should have spent longer on, but I just, for the sake of teaching, I would have sat I was so happy when you did this, calling out, like, of course you were trying to be for her what no one was for you.
Yep.
You were trying to be the mom you needed. You were trying to be the support system you needed. You needed support to leave. You needed someone to believe in you and take care of you. And you were trying to reparent yourself. Of course you were trying. And of course you were hooked on wanting to love her in the way that you needed so much. We all do that. When we have a need that we didn't get met, we want to do that for someone else, to save them and to save us. So of course you would get hooked on what was going on for her, because your own heart was like, I needed someone who believed me. I needed somebody who saw me. I needed someone who fought for me. I needed someone who told me to get safe. I needed someone to help me out earlier. So I thought, that was a big key, Jacqueline. And I just feel so proud. I'm like, look at our second years. They look at present and smart. Like y'all you're all you first years that can have hope. You're like, you don't have to know it all yet. You'll get there, but great job. Very, very good. Let's do Jennifer.
Lynette, I know my heart, just as a mama, I feel you. I know it came out messy. I heard you say it came out messy, but I could feel the heart of you as a mama for your son, just wanting to protect your son from being that guy, causing the harm that you experienced. And I'm like, I could feel that. I could feel your heart of trying to protect him and for him to be his best self. And I'm sorry that it came out differently than you wanted it to. I'm sorry that it came out differently than your heart intended it to.
Could you see? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Could you see that hit? Could you see that hit for her when you said that? When you said, I'm sorry that it came out different than you intended it to, could you see it actually hit her?
She's tiny on my screen.
Yeah. Well, it did. I could see it hit. Did it hit, Lynette?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. I would pin her. You may not know how to do that, that might help you. But when you're validating, that's fine. When you're validating, you can normally see when things hit people and they sink into themselves. So great job. Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, I think just, yeah, just the intention there is beautiful. Just your heart toward him is beautiful.
Really good. Really good. Great job. Sorry that I interrupted your flow to tell you you're doing good. Okay. I want to specifically, there's two that I want to focus on. So if your hands are raised and yours fits in either of these, wonderful. Common humanity or celebration. So if either of those are, we'll give you time to raise your hands. Isabel, whatever you were going to do, you can do. And then if lower your hands, if you're not common humanity or celebration, keep your hands up if you are. Go ahead.
Oh, Lynette, when you started sharing, my heart just melted. I just felt your humility. I felt your connection to your daughter-in-law and your son. You know, what struck me was that I'm dealing with a lot in my marriage, and my mom's been handling it really painfully. And there's some things that I've said to her that I want to say to you. That as a mom, you don't need to say it or do it perfectly. I don't need that. It must feel so, or it could feel, the way I heard you describing that, I felt like, oh, holy shit. I can't imagine how incredibly helpless this would feel to hear the start report, to hear her response. And I'm thinking as you're sharing, that kept building. That kept building. And even the first text or the first conversation, I imagine that felt almost terrifying. And I just saw you connecting to that and not choosing to just ignore something so important. And I see the drive. I see the drive to be part of the solution. And that just as your son and your daughter-in-law are floundering through, just as we've heard over and over, no kid needs you to be perfect. They just need you to connect. And it's so clear to me. You are just fighting for living well. And I see it. So I'm just really honored that you wanted to share something that's personal, that you wanted to let us in. It's priceless.
Yeah. Great job. Wonderful. Multiple different kinds of validation in there. Love it. Let's go with Brad.
I wanted to celebrate the fact that she didn't continue to villainize him.
Yeah.
And I think hearing her story, you know, it could have been so easy because it made so much sense, especially with, I imagine, the amount of pain that it brought up in her own story. What you guys touched on of her not, her wanting to be what she didn't have and embody that. So I just think it would have made, I wouldn't have felt, I wouldn't have felt judgmental or shocked if she would have continued to villainize. I think that would have been really easy to do. And the fact that she didn't, and even was even able to say, you know, I didn't hear his side of the story. The desire to not villainize when it's so easy just really deserves to be celebrated and acknowledged.
Yeah. My only criticism, Brad, were you actually watching her while you were saying what you said?
She's tiny, so
We need to teach people how to pin. That's what I've learned. Okay. Because that's the only criticism I had, is that I could see you couldn't see what was happening with her when you were saying things that was like hitting, and you could tangibly see it hitting her. And for you, it's a great feedback loop. Now, honestly, sometimes it hits people deeply and they don't respond at all on the outside. Like, it doesn't mean that it didn't hit if you don't see anything. Lynette's a mush pot, so she's very expressive. But that's the only thing I thought. It'd be great for you to get to see that moment. But you did that was beautiful. It was contrast, which is like, it would make sense for you to have gotten lost in that and not come out. And then the celebration of like, I was hoping somebody would hit that. Like, she decided, she caught that she was villainizing and doesn't want to. That very well, very, very beautiful, Brad. I appreciate it. Listen, my celebration is normally not based on if I think somebody does it better or worse than each other. You guys can't compare. It's normally that there's a point I had in my head that I was wanting to make, and somebody made it for me. So if you see me get like, yes, and then other people will be like, yeah, it's normally because I'm like, that's really good. But the moments that I get like, yes, is because I can dump that ADD thought out of my head now. But very good. Okay, Francois.
If I can find the mute button. Hi, I know I'm not supposed to validate for the whole thing, but man, that is so much pain, Lynette. I just see that, like, your own scenario and then going into your son's scenario, and there's just pain stacked on top of pain. And my heart breaks for you, my dear. And I wanted you to know that I see that how you are able to show up for your son and how you're able to show up for yourself with your son is due in large part to so much work that you have done from your own scenario. I know that that hurt yourself, and that there's no way you could even show up at all if you hadn't done so much work ahead of time.
That's very good.
You totally could have locked up. You could have jetted out. You could have said, I can't handle any of this, but you chose in. I'm so proud of you for that. And that's so much growth. Your heart was there to love in the place of so much pain. And that shows so much growth. And I'm so proud of you for all of the work that you've done before you even knew that your son was having this situation.
Very good. That's a great celebration.
Thanks. And Lynette, I also like kind of echo what we just heard, which is when we see somebody hurting, when we see somebody we love hurting, it is so normal for us to want to like mama bear up and protect. And so I have no like offense or shame at you for having that reaction. That's so common and normal. Like I have that all the time. I think that is such a testament to how much you love and how much you saw those people, every single one of them. You saw them hurting and you wanted to protect them. And that's honorable and beautiful. You are beautiful.
That was okay. So he just did such a great common humanity validation. That was a great example of common humanity validation. Does somebody want to explain how that was common humanity validation? What point of it was? Philip, is that your hat celebration because you want to?
Oh, no, that's me saying I want to validate through celebration.
Oh, that's cute. That's real cute. Okay. How was what Francois did common humanity? Anyone?
Was like when he's like, it's so human to respond when somebody's in pain, to want to just be the mama bear.
Mm-hmm. Like, and that shows that you love, and I know that feeling myself, and that's a common feeling. Very good. It's very good. Great job, Francois. Very good, Megan. Okay. Philip, because you had the celebration hands, we'll let you go. You did a hand and celebration.
Yeah, hold on. Let me just practice this pinning thing first.
The way to do it really quick is you take the person and you click their 3 dots, and then you scroll down to pin, and then they are the center of your screen. Great. Go ahead. I was just explaining for everyone else. I know you knew. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Lynette, how you doing?
Overwhelmed at the moment. Doing good.
You have capacity for me to just celebrate you just a little bit more?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
I just want to say I'm really, really awed by you. Your process is so beautiful to see you. You describe this incredibly painful situation. I mean, divorce is a clusterfuck, and you walked into it and chose love and chose to seek out love in the middle of a crazy situation. And you're still choosing that. And not only are you choosing love, you're choosing ownership in an area where you have an incredible amount of personal pain and so many reasons to check out, to run, to just say, I don't want anything to do with that. And you're still choosing in and leading in. And I just see your beautiful heart and your desire to do what is good and to love well. I celebrate you. Well done.
I could actually genuinely feel when you said I celebrate you, well done. I could actually feel those words from you. Like it felt like there was a lot of authority when you, I mean, I liked the other things you said too. I just noticed the feeling really stuck there. Like when you're like, I celebrate you, well done. I think that's something that most people need to hear over and over again. That's great. Very good. Good job, Philip. We are almost out of time. So I really wanted to hear from Tiffany and Angie and Kat, but I don't think we have time. So I'm going to close with a couple things that I like. Honestly, if I was doing a session, I just think it'd be helpful for you to know this. If I was doing a session with Lynette, I would probably say, like, do you think that love means you can't also have a standard and frustration and pain? Because the concept I get, and I don't know, and I'm not going to have time to go deeply into this, but the feeling I get is that she thinks that not villainizing means you're totally fine with behavior. And that is not true. Like, I can see that somebody's lovable and worthy of love and trying their best, and that they're lost in pain, but I can also see that they're doing destructive behavior. So when we remove good and bad categories, that doesn't mean I remove that there's destructive behavior. And so I can say, I love this person and they're doing destructive behavior. And so we're having to set these boundaries. And that doesn't mean I'm villainizing them. I'm just, this is accurate information. You know, if he is an addict, addicts do destructive behavior. And so not villainizing doesn't mean that we enable or we coddle or and so like, I am sure that there's areas that you did victimize, villainize, but I also think there's probably areas that there were good boundaries that were necessary. So if I was doing a session, I'd probably talk that through with her. What do you think villainizing is or isn't? And what do you think love? Like, if you like, I'd be curious what her definition of what she thinks she should have done was. I'd be like, okay, so you have regret over something you didn't do. What did you think you should have done? Because I'd like to know if it was realistic or not. And I'd like to know if it was love or not. I'm not sure if it would have been. Like, I just don't know if that's right. Like, is her definition of not villainizing that? I mean, like, I do think asking him questions, wanting to know his side, hearing his story, that would make sense. And also addicts lie. So I would be holding both. I'd be holding both things. I would be holding that the daughter-in-law could be lying. I'd be holding that the son could be lying. And maybe not lying as much as, well, sometimes flat out lying. And then sometimes that's how their filter experienced it. So, so it's just helpful to, it's helpful to be, there's a lot of practical things that I'd want to make sure that she wasn't villainizing herself in the process. Like, and like, I would probably have asked her, like, so you saw that this other woman supported her son. What are ways you supported your son through this? Because I would bet there are ways you supported your son through this. I would bet there were things that you did that were loving and kind towards him in the middle of this. Is that true? Yeah. So then I would be pointing her back towards what are the things, like, I want ownership. I never want denial. So I never want to be like, I did everything right, but I also don't want, I did everything wrong. I want us to be able to hold both. So I can tell she can hold the regret. I would want to know, can she hold the celebration? Can she make a list of all the things she did well for her son? Can she be proud of what she did do to love him well? Because holding both of them is really important. Before we end, Kenneth, do you just want to read your paragraph about rewiring this conference? The neurology. You want to just share that?
I'm going to read it or share it.
Yeah, you can just share it, however you want to do it.
I mean, partly because I'm studying in psychology, but at the same time, I'm trying to watch for that in my own life, like, and celebrate it too. Like, when I notice I'm changing, the little ways I'm changing, I try to celebrate them. So like, even during this call, like, some of the thoughts I'm having, some of the feelings, I'm like, man, I wouldn't have had these thoughts a year ago or 2 years ago. I'm like, my neurology is changing moment by moment. It's not like, oh, it took 6 months. It's like every hour I sit with you guys or watch calls or training calls or read a book or whatever, like, it's rewiring all the time, constantly. So
yeah. I think it's really important. What you just did is so important, that we become mindful of growth, because even what you shared is resource, that you were sitting there looking at, how is this affecting? What are the thoughts what is the compassion I had that I've never felt before? What is the curiosity I had that I've never had before? What is the response I had that I've never had before? What about this culture is starting to feel normal that wasn't in my culture before? The contrast helps us see and celebrate. And then, like, that awareness, even what he said, the declaration, my neurology is it neurology? My neurology is changing. Like, my brain is actually changing. My emotional wiring is actually changing, because the more we're mindful of that and we think about it and we feel proud of ourselves. Like, I sat through another 2-hour freaking call. I am a hero. And then be like, and I'm feeling emotions, and I'm not as scared of other people's emotions as I was when I started all these courses. And I'm not freaking out like I used to, and all of those things. I just think it is, I loved your comment. And I think this is so important in gathering resources and celebrating. Like, we've got to be good. What we are teaching you about validating others, your own soul needs. Your soul needs you to celebrate every step forward. Your soul needs you to see and understand why you make sense. Your soul needs you to be proud of you comparatively, to celebrate, to validate your own intentions. Like everything we just did, we could spend a whole 5-hour session on how do you do that towards yourself. But anyway, great example, Kenneth. Thank you so much for sharing.
Can I
And
say one more thing real quick? For you guys, for the set, I just wanted to say, like, the reason I put that out there is because I was just having this sense. I was remembering a few times when I was tempted to believe, like, oh, is this really worth it? A year of my life, 15, 20 hours a week, $13,000. And I remember the very first video, I can't remember if it was Justin or Abby, but I remember one of you guys on that introduction video said, trust the process. And like you made it, you knew we were going to struggle. So you were highlighting that concept. And I remember logging it and going, okay, Kenneth, you are going to be so frustrated and discouraged and ashamed. And so I just kept saying to myself, just do it, log it, trust the process. And I've said it to myself so many times the last 5 months. So that's why I threw it out there, because I'm assuming other people are struggling with it too.
very true. Very true. I couldn't agree more. I love the hunger for growth and the journey that you're on. I feel so proud of so many of you, and very excited to keep growing with validation with you all. And yeah, what a good group. What a good mini conference. I feel like we did this one.
You did this one.
Well,
I hung out in the background with you.
But don't you think like this? I think this one went well. I think the 3 sessions were fun.
We got to work.
I feel good about it. I'm not a coward. I love it. Ryan, it's really fun having you live in the calls. I know your work schedule's crazy, but I really it's fun getting to see people, and I don't always get to see. It's delightful.
Yes.
Except for the boo.
Boo.
We should get shirts that just say moo or boo moo.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Later, Gators.